Hello, everyone. Welcome to Cinema Review Avenue on the Queen City Circle channel. I am your host, Jacob. I hope everyone is having a good day today, and I hope you're all ready for some entertainment. Joining me today are my co-host, Lilith,
Hey, I'm excited to be here.
Nathan,
Hey, I'm excited to be here too.
and Logan from the SWEO2 Twitch Gaming channel.
What's up, y'all? Always excited to be here.
I am also excited, and I'm happy to have you all here today. Today we will be reviewing Lisa Joys' directorial debut, Reminiscence. So settle in, get comfy, and don't forget to leave a like and click that subscribe button and share with your friends. With all that said, let's discuss Reminiscence. What is the first topic we would like to cover on this?
I think the first one's plot, isn't it? I think that's what we go into first. Also, spoiler warning. Watch the movie. Then come back.
Yes,
Or
major
better yet,
spoilers.
or better yet, just keep watching and just mute it and then put it on repeat, then go watch the movie and come back.
Yes, the first topic is plot.
Just before we get any further, I wanted to take a minute to the viewers and kind of give a synopsis on really what the movie is about before we go any further. So, Hugh Jackman plays a character named Nick Bannister, and he is what is called a private investigator of the mind. And he navigates the alluring world of the past through people's memories. So the future, due to environmental catastrophes, the oceans are rising, cities and landscapes that were once all land are now becoming just sort of cities on water. But it hasn't completely enveloped all of the countries. And like Lily brought up, everybody works and the lives of everybody is now taking place at nighttime because nobody can go out and really live during the day because of the heat of the sun alone. So because of all this, wars broke out, and during the war a piece of technology was invented for interrogations that was able to dive back into a person's memories that the military used to find out information and take it and use it to their advantage. However, it did not stay a military application for long and soon was put out into the public market as sort of their form of entertainment. It's kind of their form of movies because nobody's taken the time to spend resources on something as useless as a movie. So now people go to these companies that have this technology and they pay to revisit very vividly memories of better times in their heads. Because, you know, when you look back on memories, they're kind of fuzzy, you kind of forget things. Well, this totally paints a clear picture and it feels like you've jumped back into the past. However, this technology needs trained professionals like Nick Bannister, who used this in his military days, who know how to ask the correct and specific questions to direct your mind to certain scenarios and memories without your mind being damaged by people who are untrained in asking the correct answers, questions that are leading and not self-leading yourself. It's almost like a fake forced answer. So it's almost become like a drug and an escape and a nostalgia trip for everybody in this world. And one day, Nick Bannister, along with Thandie Newton's character, Emily Sanders, owns their own company that has one of these memory machines, and enters Rebecca Ferguson's character as May one night, showing up to help find lost keys that she totally forgot about. So they help her, and immediately Hugh Jackman's character is just captivated by her beauty, her presence, and almost, you could say, love at first sight. They help her out. They find her keys, and she moves on, and Hugh Jackman's character can just not get the memory out of his head about this woman. And so he goes and finds her, and they develop a relationship together. A relationship that spans, I would say, 6 months or so, I would say probably half a year they spend together.
If that.
Right. And
I thought it was more like a 3-4 month kind of, a little bit shorter, but
you can clearly see
They
that
bonded.
in the time they had, they definitely did bond.
100%.
But
You
she
could tell he was in love with her.
big time,
100%.
and it seemed like she was in love with him.
Or so you think.
Well, she vanishes, and it completely destroys Hugh Jackman's life. So he starts using the memory machine over and over and over again, which does damage to individuals if it's overused, to figure out why this woman, who seemed so head over heels for him, would just vanish. And that's wherein lies the mystery of what happened to this missing client that spawned into a deep love relationship. And as it goes on, we find out more world building, that since the oceans are flooding coastal cities and coastal continents and coastal states, the more inland states and territories were bought up by what they call in this movie barons. And one of the barons that takes place in Miami in the setting of this movie is filthy rich, and you have to pay him to even go to these mainlands, and will not let anybody in, and they're completely in control. Kind of like some monopolies that I'm not going to name today, that have control of a lot of assets that are not willing to share without a substantial price tag in modern day society, which I found quite enjoyable that they were able to integrate that into a fantasy storytelling film. Well, as you find out, the mystery goes on, and this baron has been having multiple affairs with random individuals, and one of the affairs he has with what happens to be a client for Hugh Jackman's character, and they end up having a child together. Well, you find out that the dirty cop, Cyrus Booth, played by Cliff Curtis, was hired by the Baron to go around and pretty much kill off and eliminate all of his children that were born out of wedlock. And this dirty cop hires... Well, I wouldn't say hires. He pretty much forces May, Rebecca Ferguson's character, into helping him kidnap one of his mistresses and kill her child. And as you go on and learn, you think at the same time that, oh, she's a terrible person if she's willing to do this. But her hand is being forced in this, and Hugh Jackman slowly learns this throughout the film. And you come to find out that it wasn't actually the Baron who hired the cop to kill off all the offspring. It was the son of the Baron who hired this man, because he wanted no issues in getting his inheritance from his dead father. And so he was willing to pay a man to go off and slaughter children and innocents so he could get filthy rich. Totally believable. And that was not sarcasm. But you do find out that May's character was forced to help him due to a history they had together. And she ends up, instead of killing the child, she risked her life to save the child and take him and hide him from the dirty cop. Later on, she ends up getting found by the dirty cop. And as Hugh Jackman slowly unravels the mystery, he captures the dirty cop and interrogates him through the memory machine, and finds out that being forced against the wall and captured and trying to protect the life of a child, Rebecca Ferguson's character has to make a sacrifice. But through the memory machine, she knows she can talk to the dirty cop because she believes that Hugh Jackman was so in love with her and so dedicated that he would come across this memory. And she gives him a message through the dirty cop's memory and ends up taking a mass amount of drugs and jumping off a building, killing herself in order to protect the child, and leaving the information inside the memory of the dirty cop for Hugh Jackman to go out and save the innocent kid's life and figure out who hired this man to kill off all these children.
Can I stop you right there real quick? That scene right there you were talking about made me cry like nobody. Like it was.
Well,
it
when
was
she commits suicide
when
and she's
she was
talking to
when she was
him?
talking to him through the memory, like I didn't know what was like. I didn't understand at first, but then like as it starts, like some key words she says, you're like,
Right.
whoa,
Right.
she's talking to him, and then like he get like how he gets in there and like
As
it's
the
right like
audience,
it's like
you slowly
it's
catch
like
up.
yeah,
I would say that is
it-
arguably the best scene of this entire film.
it was beautiful. It was like I was like, that is crazy. Like she was playing 3D chess and that dude was playing checkers. All right.
Right. Right.
And I was like, she is so like it showed how intelligent she was as a character to do that.
Yeah.
Knowing I was just like, wow, that, and like you could see the tears in his eyes and everything like that, and it all welling up. I was like, that seemed like so natural. I was like, wow.
And so after finding out this information, Hugh Jackman ends up burning a terrible memory into the cop, which we find out in this world is actually more illegal than committing murder. So by those actions, he turns himself in to the cops. And since he helped save the child and helped unsolve this giant plot, he's able to make a deal with the cops, and instead of going to prison, he chooses a life sentence inside the memory machine to spend those 3 or 4 months he had with Rebecca Ferguson's character until he pretty much dies. And we actually get a jump in time towards the end of the movie where they're all old. Like, he's a super old man, and Thandie Newton's character is an old woman, and he's still in the machine, and he'll be in there reliving those precious memories until the day he dies. So essentially, the entire movie you're watching is technically taking place inside the memory machine without you even knowing it until the very end. But that is, I wanted everybody to know kind of the plot of this movie before we went any further. Okay, so who would like to start?
I'll go, because I am excited to talk about this movie. I love the plot. It's definitely like a dystopian Blade Runner-esque, like neo-noir detective movie. And I was excited to go in to watch this. Hugh Jackman. I haven't
Obviously.
seen him in much since he retired Wolverine, but seeing him come back in a leading role in a movie that I was already interested in, and then there was just so much that happened with like the love interests and the constant back and forth on whether or not she was even a person worth caring about, and the way that they were able to make me feel something towards that, like the constant back and forth throughout the movie on like the emotional whiplash that I got vicariously through Hugh Jackman's relationship with the actress whose name I do not remember.
It is Rebecca Ferguson.
Ferguson. I just loved it. The world building itself I thought was incredible. Like for as long as I've been alive, we've been talking about global warming, And when it first started like showing out that it was going to be about global warming as the world building, there's always a fine line between it basically being a set piece on global warming as a talking point, but this I think used it in a spectacular way to where it just used that to set the world, to set the tone. Like, yeah, the waters rose. War broke out because of it. The daytime, it is now too hot to live there comfortably in the day. And it's just all in all, I think the plot that drives this movie is incredible. Jackman's character falls for a girl. They date for a couple months. She goes missing, and the whole story is him trying to find out where where she is, where she went, using this machine that he was an expert at using during the war, which allows you to go back and relive your own memories. And one, that's just a cool machine. Like I don't know that I personally would have any use for it. But having that ability would be cool. Just to go back and like spend another couple hours in that one great memory that you have. But overall, I love the plot. I think it was great.
Anybody else?
I think Lily kind of hit all the main points. Like at first, when I first saw this, I was really skeptical about it. I was like, I don't think this is something I'm really going to want to see. And I didn't even see the full trailer, mind you. I only saw like bits and pieces like on HBO advertisements. I was like, I don't think I really want to see it. And then when you had brought it up, and it was like I'm glad I watched it. It was one of those movies that like I felt emotionally developed with. I was getting wound up with the whole going through the process, him trying to find her and everything that took to find out what happened. Like I felt like I was right there next to him, like, oh my God. Like it was like I think it was put together beautifully, and how the whole story ends up being like I think it ended better than I expected it would be.
Nathan?
I mean, it was alright. There were some parts of it that you would question as to like why did that even need to be in there? And then some were just super inconsistencies for what he does around the world during the plot. But it was okay for me. It was super depressing.
Would you
So
say
I
that's a
would
detriment to the plot?
I mean, I would say if you want to go watch a depressing movie, it's up to you. It's up your alley. But, if you don't want to cry in a theater, don't watch the movie.
I
Wait
always
till
want to cry in a theater.
well, that's
Them ugly cries going.
we'll have to circle back to that one later of the crying in the theater. But it was all right. For the plot.
Plot wise, my perspective on the whole plot is it super original? No, not in the
No.
slightest. It's a very, a whodunit. It's a mystery thriller, like Lily said, neo-noir crime drama almost. And I don't have anything against those movies. Personally, I really enjoy neo-noir films. And I liked how it was very in the future, but it had that 1930s style to everything, like the way people dressed, the sets, the cinematography, and just their daily lives. It had an old feel to it, mixed in with dystopian future. And I thought Lisa Joy captured that phenomenally. Almost like what they do with Westworld. It feels in the future, but it has that old Western feel about it throughout. It wasn't overly complicated as a plot. Pretty simple. And they didn't, the fact that it wasn't overly complicated, I liked, but it wasn't so hand-holding that you had figured out every single reveal that was going to come towards the final acts well before it happened. Towards the very end, there were characters that I was still totally on the fence about, and their motivations and who they were as a person, whether they were a protagonist or an antagonist. And I enjoyed that. You don't get this type of movies anymore where it really makes you think, and you kind of got to put in more of an effort into just watching it. It's not sit back, turn your brain off, and watch bright, fantastic, beautiful CGI fights and monsters duking it out throughout the entire film. I was thoroughly impressed with how she presented a very original plot. I found it quite entertaining and enjoyable all throughout. I was engaged the entire movie. Not once was I like, man, this is boring. Or, okay, let's move along. We're really dragging. The dialogue, all of it, the characters, the acting, set pieces kept me wanting, give me more, give me more, give me more. And I think she did pretty fantastic on the plot for being an unoriginal idea. Because my take on making stories is there is only so many original ideas you can do. There's like 30 original ideas out there, and every single one of them has been done before. So now you have to be the type of filmmaker and storyteller that, how can I take this original idea and just put my creative spin on it that stands out amongst the thousands of others that have tried to do this?
To make it just better than that.
Right. I don't think when it comes to storytelling, there's no more reinventing the wheel. It's just
Who can do it better at this point?
Right. Who can do it better? And I think, for anybody who doesn't know, Lisa Joy is the wife of Jonathan Nolan. And Jonathan Nolan is the brother to a household name director, I'm sure everybody knows, Christopher Nolan. And he makes fantastic spins on original ideas that almost feel like reinventing the wheel. But if you boil them down, they're like, oh, this is a love story. Oh, this is a time heist. Oh, you can always boil it down to its basic ideas, but the way he presents them and the way he writes his stories and his plots are absolutely phenomenal. And Jonathan Nolan and Lisa Joy, in my opinion, have created and co-wrote possibly one of the smartest, well-written, and entertaining shows of our time, Westworld. So I was very interested to see what she could do with a big budget film and be let loose on her own. I enjoyed this movie quite a lot. Our next topic is
acting.
The acting. So, Logan, what did you feel about the acting? Your thoughts on the acting?
So, the main actors, obviously Hugh Jackman and Rebecca Ferguson as the two main characters. I felt from the beginning like they did very well. Overall, I think they did great acting. As in the story, you could obviously tell certain things were being hidden. When Rebecca Ferguson's character May, would hide stuff from Nick, and it was one of those things. They did a really good way of doing it, but without being too dramatic with it. You get what I mean? Like, she wasn't overly dramatic about hiding those facts.
It didn't feel. Are you saying it didn't feel forced? Like, her acting did not feel forced. It felt more natural.
I felt with her because I've seen her in a couple movies, such as she also starred with Hugh Jackman in uh what's the musical?
Les Miserables.
No, not Les Miserables.
I don't know. You just said musical. That's the first one
The
that came to
Greatest
mind.
Showman
Yeah, The Greatest Showman. They were together in The Greatest Showman.
ish.
Yeah, she was the affair that he had. She was the singer that well, she took a picture of her and him kissing in the movie, and it caused that whole issue with him and his wife. But I think their acting together has just done nothing but get better and better. And I think, they complement each other very well. Him being a super like serious actor and her, you know, she's kind of got that her acting style is kind of like, she's kind of the same thing throughout like all the movies I've seen with her, but she's keeping that steady and it works out I feel very well.
Okay. Nathan, thoughts on the acting in this film?
Acting was. It was a big budget movie, so they had pretty good acting. I mean, it wasn't like anything that stood out of, well, that's terrible. There was no Harley Quinn in it.
Thank God.
So, I mean, A-list actors pretty much always bring great performances.
I would say
Especially-
that's debatable, but okay.
Well, okay, not always, but Harley Quinn. A-list actors bring great performances a lot of the time. And you had Mr. Wolverine in it, and he's sexy.
True that.
I'm
He
gonna
is.
leave
He
it at
is.
that.
He's still stupidly
Like,
physically fit.
yeah, he is. He really is.
Especially in the scene where he takes his shirt off and you see
The
that
multiple
lovely
scenes.
hair.
Yeah. In our podcast that me and Lily did, we actually discussed a little bit about Hugh Jackman after
hair?
finishing his role with Wolverine, and we had joked about him going, okay, for decades I have remained this godlike character. Now it's my turn to get super fat and just blow up and accept me or not.
Let him eat cake.
Let me eat cake.
Okay, Lily, your thoughts on the acting?
So for me, it was a treat to see a lot of the returning cast from Westworld. Even if they didn't have like major roles, I think only the actress who plays Maeve in Westworld got any sort of like big role.
Yeah, Angela Seraphian. I don't know how to say her last name.
Thandai Newton.
No, Thandie Newton is his
Maeve.
side, his partner.
Okay, I thought that's who he was talking about, Maeve.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, all right, yeah. Who's the who's the other girl?
Let's say the blonde girl that was also in Westworld.
What is her
Ellen Rachel
name?
Wood.
No, not
What is her
Evan.
Yvonne Rachel Wood.
No, the other prostitute.
The other prostitute.
It's
that's what she plays in
her.
Westworld.
Yeah, I don't remember her name.
I've
Clementine.
never seen the show, so-
Clementine.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm really bad at remembering
Yeah.
actors' names. But yeah, I actually was a little disappointed she didn't have a bigger role.
That Thandie
thought she
Newton
was-
didn't, or Clementine's character?
Clementine's character, because she doesn't really have a big role in Westworld, and it kind of feels like she played the same thing here. Just kind of like a skittish, scared person. And I mean, if that's just the limit to her range, that's fine. She does it good. But I would have liked to see her do a little bit more. Just because it feels like it could almost be the same character, a
I
couple
agree.
100 years later.
She does
As
have
far as-
beautiful eyes.
Yeah.
I
As far
honestly
as
wanted to know more
Jackman,
about her character. Like in the movie, I really wanted to know more about her character.
I agree.
Just going through.
Like how
But as
she
far
led
as
up and
like,
met. Yeah.
but as far as like Jackson and Ferguson, I really did like their chemistry. I do think they sold the relationship to me, even though it moved a bit fast to be realistic to me. I get that that was just something they had to establish to move on with the rest of the story. Uh,
That's
I
an
think
interest.
Maeve's actress did a wonderful job. Um, she really sold this character who was just kind of constantly running away from her own life and just doing what she could to protect the only friend she really kept around anymore. And I thought that was great to see. So like the the only like actor that I didn't particularly care for in this movie was the drug dealer, because he just felt a little like he was trying too hard.
Are you
Like not too
talking
much. Like
about
he was still doing a good job. But the guy who sold Baca, um,
Saint Joe, played by
yeah,
Daniel Wu?
yeah. I feel like everything like kind of felt just a little forced with his character. Like he wasn't actually like this big bad uh like mafia
Not very
era
threatening.
boss. Yeah. Yeah, I didn't buy him. Um but I mean he's like the weakest link that I could find in this entire movie. I really loved the like creepy relationship that they showed between uh the Baroness and her son. That was like disturbing and so like subtle for most of it, like the implication of like what that means for their relationship
Yeah,
as
you're
mother and
talking
son.
about Tamara Sylvan, played by Marina de Tavera, and Sebastian Sylvan, who plays her son, played by Mohin Araria. Sorry. Yeah.
Area.
Yeah. Yeah.
That was
I
creepy.
just
Super
yeah,
creepy.
it was really weird. Like from the first moment you see them together, it's just so clear that there's like something wrong with that relationship, and like the uneasiness you see, the uneasiness that I felt while watching both of them in a scene together never went away. That relationship always felt awkward and strained in a good way, and I loved that. So overall, like the acting I think was incredible with the exception of one. And I don't even think that was terrible. I just think it was a little out of, it just didn't feel as natural as everyone else did, is what I'll say.
All right.
Okay. Um, my take on the acting for this film, I agree with the majority of everybody here. Hugh Jackman, I have yet to see him in a role where he doesn't give at least 100% in everything he's presented with. His emotional highs and emotional lows throughout the entire film, I felt them. I genuinely felt them. They placed us in the shoes of his character, and not once did I ever leave his mindset or his emotional resonance dealing with the plot and the other characters. 10 out of 10 for Hugh Jackman. Rebecca Ferguson, I remember seeing her, I think the first time I was introduced to her was through the Mission Impossible franchise. And right out the gate, for somebody who can stand toe to toe and not be overshadowed by a real life small person like Tom Cruise, but in movies has a massive presence that dominates the screen, she held her own throughout those movies. And she did a great job. I think she did great in this, but a good point Logan did bring up is she does seem to play the same type of character in multiple movies. So I would like to see her be pulled out. There's probably a movie out there that I've not seen with her in it. I want to see her pulled out of her like comfort zone of acting. I really want to see her, you know, thrown to the wolves and see how she bounces off. Thandie Newton's character is Emily Watts Sanders, Hugh Jackman's partner throughout the film. I didn't have an issue with her at all. I have had an issue with her character in Westworld, but that's just her character, and that just shows you how well that an actor can make you like or dislike the actions of a character that they're supposed to play. So I think she did fine. The mother and son trio.
Duo.
Yeah, duo. They did good.
He was imagining he was in there too.
For right out the gate, and I don't know if I'm the only one, but I personally felt some incestual vibes. And that's what I thought they were going for in that direction until you get further on into the plot and realize, no, she's just absolutely crazy. And in this world, through going in machines and reliving past memories, that if you do that so much, it's akin to becoming addicted to narcotics. And once you get hooked on a certain narcotic, that never departs from your life. That's something you have to live with for the rest of your life. And she played that crazy, mentally damaged character fantastically. And the son just brought off a quiet, uneasy feel throughout the whole film. Daniel Wu's character as Saint Joe, I would have to agree with Lilith. He felt too showman, too much showmanship to be a threatening gangster, drug dealing big boss. Never once, if I would have walked up to that guy and he had not been surrounded by 12 burly men with rifles slinged around their shoulders, I would not be intimidated by his presence or his style whatsoever. I don't know if that's a critique on Daniel Wu and his acting, or if that is just how they wrote that character. But he is in New Orleans, and he does kind of have that like New Orleans feel of like loose and free flowing and just kind of a swagger about him that was entertaining, but definitely the weakest link out of the actors so far. And one actor that I would like to point out that I personally love in almost everything he's been in is Cliff Curtis, who plays the rogue dirty cop Cyrus Booth, who is slowly introduced in the beginning, but without you knowing becomes an integral character in the plot later on. But I feel his performance was equal to Jackman's in the amount of screen time that he was given, and he was able to go toe to toe and really drive home that something terrible happened to him. He was once in power and now he's trying to remain in power, but due to the event that happened to him, when you come to find out, is he worked for the drug dealer and was caught stealing money from the drug dealer. And so they pretty much poured kerosene all over him and burned him alive and left him viciously scarred. And he plays that trauma very well throughout the whole film. And he was actually quite intimidating, which I found funny because the dirty cop who worked for the drug dealer was more intimidating than the big boss drug dealer.
100%.
But overall, I would say those are the main actors that really brought it out. No issues on the acting whatsoever. I thought they were solid. They felt like they were there to have a good time and actually be enveloped in their roles. But I never felt anybody was there as a paycheck. Not once.
Real
All
quick, if I could just touch on casting for just 1 second. Actually, before I go into that, I do want to say, like, yeah, with Wu, I think it just felt too much like he was a caricature of a New Orleans drug dealer than he felt like a New Orleans drug dealer.
I
But
can agree with that.
when it comes to like casting, I can only think of one other person who would do as good of a job as Jackman did with the "we are now going on a trip back in time to a place you've already been." Like such an like that little like integral speech that he just constantly has to repeat. I think Jackman was like perfect casting for his voice for that. Because the only other person that I can think of, and again, I'm terrible with names, so sorry to the actor, is the guy who plays Bernard in Westworld.
Oh, I know who you're talking about.
Jeffrey
Jeffrey
Wright?
Wright. Yeah,
Yeah.
he would be because that's the type of character he plays in Westworld. He's kind of like your narrator through the memories and journeys, and his voice is resonating.
Yeah, he's got a good voice for that. And I'm
Absolutely.
glad they got Jackman, don't get me wrong, but that's like the only other person I could see cast in this role. And it's 90% for his voice because like
Well, his acting alone is, I would say, on par with Jackman. I mean,
oh yeah,
he
no, he
delivers the emotional points. His acting is fantastic for the limited for the movies I've seen him in, movies and TV shows. So I think he would have
yeah,
been a great replacement for Jackman.
I think he's phenomenal, but the reason I say like and 90% for his voice is because I also think like Jackman just delivers this role exceptionally well himself, and I wouldn't want to see him recast, but like I was more so leaning on if they weren't able to get Jackman, that's who I would have liked to see. But I do think Jackman was a great choice for this. Um,
So so I was my immediate thought when you said someone else that could sit there and do it. I was thinking the Watcher. I didn't know he played the Watcher in Marvel's What If.
Yes, Jeffrey
yeah,
Wright is the
that's him.
voice of the
I didn't
Watcher.
know that because that immediately that's what I thought of is like he would sound great. And then like I go to his IMDb, I'm like, are you kidding? He is the Watcher. I was
Yep.
like, okay, okay.
He's got a
It's like
beautiful storytelling voice.
it's a soothing voice.
So we talked about plot, actors, and the next thing we have to talk about is
Cinematography.
cinematography. Lilith, would you like to start us off on cinematography?
Yeah. So, slight caveat when it comes to like the entirety of the cinematography and choices that were made. Our particular theater that we saw this at was pretty dark. So when it comes to lighting, I can't give too much insight because the entire movie was like almost pitch black for me. Um, but outside of that, what I could see, I did enjoy the choices made there. Um, I can definitely see because the only thing I knew about Lisa Joy before I watched this movie was that she had directed an episode or two of Westworld, and I could definitely pick up on that watching this movie.
Oh yeah.
Um, so yeah, like the one big caveat I have with the cinematography overall is when we first meet Hugh Jackman's character, and I know Nate will agree with me on this.
Yeah.
When it pans up from the Queen of Hearts or Queen of Diamonds, whichever one it was, uh, when Jackman picks it up, it is so poorly composited in that it does not look like a real shot. It looks very CGI, and it was
actually.
yeah, it was very jarring.
Are you talking like the card being pulled out of the water itself was like the jarring CGI?
No, like the pan up to Jackman.
Oh,
Yeah, when
okay.
he's
Like
walking
when he like
down.
actually like it up and it goes from like his feet level all the way up and he's holding the card. It looks pretty last gen console. Not PS4. I'm talking about like PS3, Xbox 360. It looks very just old console level CGI to me, or green screen. Whatever they did there, they did something a little off, because that was a noticeably.
I did notice that as well. And that just kind of like hammers in a point on a previous video we talked about, saying that even big budget movies, I've seen terrible CGI.
Yeah.
And
I didn't even notice it.
But as far as like everything else, I mean, outside the lighting, which again I already touched on, our theater was dark. But outside of that, like some of the camera shots were cool. Um, because I've watched a lot of movies and TV shows lately, so I want to make sure that I'm thinking of the right scene. This was the movie where like the camera flew through the like coffee pot and ended up on the other side, and it kept like zooming and panning.
are you talking about Panic Room?
Am I?
Yeah, where David Fincher makes the camera
Through
like
that keyhole
I
and
am,
everything.
omniscient and can go through any obstacle whatsoever. It feels more like
I am in fact thinking of a different movie then. Okay, then yeah, I'm just trying to remember. I'm trying to reminisce on the movie, uh, because it's been a couple days, but
Get
I
out.
remember not being upset about anything that I saw. Um, there was like, I think, one scene that felt like was missing that they needed to have, and it was how Jackman got the body of the detective from the like uh ghetto, I guess, back to the
the
city.
warehouse area.
Yeah, back to the workshop that he used.
Well, if you notice when that in during that scene after they get out of the water, he does have that like that needle with the drug that they inject for people that dream, and he injects it into his neck, and it cuts to black, and the next time we see him he's in the memory machine. So
I mean, yeah,
think
I
what
can.
Lily's getting with is like how he got there
well, he
without
did
everyone
come in.
else noticing.
He came in in that point, I don't think anybody cares like how run down that area was. You could commit murder there, and everybody would probably go about their day.
Well, he
But
was
I
like that
mean,
crime boss essentially. I mean,
we can fill in the blanks ourselves. I just think it feels like that scene was missing. Even just like, you know, a short like 15-30 second scene where it just like shows him dragging the body out to the boat,
yeah,
that would have been enough. But for me, it feels like it was missing, because it feels like there should be stakes when you're dragging an unconscious body into a workshop that's known to be used for this reminiscence machine. Um, but other than that, I really loved the attention to detail when it came to the old Baroness recreating her memory of telling her husband that she was pregnant,
yeah.
and how like it was almost like shot for shot, just so detailed. Like they really pushed like the extravagance of the wealthy in this world. Um, and I do love like all the visual world building that we get, where not everything has to be explained, and it's clear to see. There's a lot of contrasting colors. I really love like the overlay of the reminiscence machine itself, to where it's like a faded memory in the background to anybody who's not experiencing it. And to me, that was really, really cool. The way that it'll fade out when somebody gets pulled out of the machine, instead of just like cutting to black, or just completely shutting off, how like the mind takes time to leave that place and readjust to the reality. I thought that was a nice touch. Um, but as far as everything else goes, I just think it was shot beautifully. I love the contrasting colors, especially like the deep reds of the bar that she sang at, versus the overtone brown and blues of the real world, and then the pure white of the rich baroness. Uh, so white that dirt wouldn't be allowed to touch something that
Right.
rich. And I did thoroughly enjoy the use of colors, and that's pretty much it. That's all I got to say about the cinematography.
Let's just call it what it really is. They're laying in the animus.
Yeah, this is essentially Assassin's Creed almost, but okay, so Nathan, your views on the cinematography?
I don't really have much to say about cinematography. Uh, like, Lily said I couldn't see the movie in the theater. Thank you, AMC theaters. Uh,
Demonetized.
Probably. Well, they should have better theaters.
Okay,
I'm not gonna have anything to say on the cinematography,
okay,
so we'll skip that.
Logan.
I have to agree. Everything that Lily said, spot on with the how the color and the contrast was was just beautiful. The only scene I have to pick out in particular was that water scene. Like when what's his name?
When Hugh
Cliff
Jackman's way
when
down in there.
well when Cliff Curtis played by Cyrus Booth played by Cliff Curtis was going down and he actually jumped in and how it like showed back the full depth of like the area they were in, that like room or that building that they were diving down in and helping them out. Then the scene when you see May, like as we've seen through the trailer a couple times, like the hair bloom out and everything. I like the light coming through. I thought that was shot beautifully.
Yeah,
Like it showed like he was in that bliss for a brief second, like seeing her face and the hair and like that angel-esque type, feel come on. It was like that was a beautiful shot.
Well,
that was
that scene.
an intense and beautiful scene.
Mhm.
Like we were talking about it in the theater. Just like imagine being pinned down by a piano and drugged to the point where like
30,
once that
30
that
feet
floor
underwater.
breaks,
Yeah.
that would be so terrifying, and the view on the way up or down depending was just so beautiful, like that one ray of light into that pitch black water.
Lighting it
That
all
was
up.
so intense.
It lit up that
loved
room. Like that when it zoomed out and it showed Hugh Jackman diving down to go get him and it had that full scene.
Yeah, the
Like that would be
wide
like
angle shot.
the wide angle shot. It would be perfect, like a background for anything, like your computer, your phone. Like it was just how it was set up was beautiful. That light lit up that whole area. It was mwah.
Mwah. Chef's kiss. Chef's kiss. Yeah, cinematography for me in this movie, nothing really to complain about. It didn't blow me out of the water, but it didn't take me out of the movie. I thought what was shot was beautifully shot, and the big epic moments and emotional moments were definitely highlighted in the cinematography. I would say, and I think we all agree here, the most beautiful shot in the entire movie was the water sequence with Hugh Jackman and Cliff Booth's character. Other than that, the way they kept capturing the dreams through the machine, the memories through the machine, fantastic cinematography. And I do like how there was definitely a difference in night and day. And nighttime, they use so many neon lights and highlighting colors to contrast the darkness, and during the day it was almost so washed out that through visuals alone you could feel the heat that the sun was emanating off on every individual and the world around us. But yeah, cinematography, fantastic. Not the best I've seen in movies, but definitely good in this. Definitely good.
It definitely played their strengths in this one, like for sure. And then like one last shot that I liked is when it always had the wide angle pan out of the city.
Yes,
Like
yes.
that, like
Showing how the
like,
water
it's
was consuming
actually,
it.
Exactly. Like the whole movie, it reminded me of like Venice.
Yeah,
Like,
I
but
did get that feeling as well.
then you saw like where he worked, right there was just flood. Like you could just see the water coming over the levee just a little bit, enough to flood the streets out. But it was like, whoa,
Yeah, it was about
it was
like
like
4 or 5 inches of water at all times.
right there. But everywhere else, like they had to have boats to go anywhere.
I loved the use of close-ups.
Hmm.
I think they were done like pretty phenomenally. Like, because most of the ones that I'm remembering are uh with Jackman and May. Uh, like it would just be playing out a memory that they had, and then like his hand would touch her arm, and it would do a close up on it, like as if the memory of their skin just touching is so burned into Nick's mind that I mean, clearly just a good memory that he constantly wants to keep going back to. And then the close-ups of himself and his voice to know that like he's kind of like commanding his own scene. Uh it's I just love the use of close-ups. I think it wasn't overdone. It was very good, and I was able to feel the emotion that I think Joy wanted me to feel.
Yeah. And my last point on cinematography before we move on is being somebody who's a member of the famous Nolan family. Her movie feels like her movie. It doesn't feel like a rehash, like she was trying to be Christopher Nolan, because Christopher Nolan has very specific cinematography, and you can tell watching any of his movies that's a Christopher Nolan film. This definitely did feel like something this was her own work. It stood out if you were to put them side to side, and it had her own touch to it, and I like that.
It was a Lisa Joy film. It wasn't a Nolan film.
Correct.
It
Correct.
definitely made the clear difference of it.
So after cinematography, we have what?
Music.
Music. Okay. Who would like to start us off on music?
I
Okay, go
didn't
ahead.
really listen that hard for the music though.
I didn't really pay attention to a whole lot of the music throughout the movie. It was more so it was that subtle like background music like for any like dystopian movie. Like it didn't have anything major that added to it, but it was that nice subtle that during the quiet times you could hear something. But I didn't think it really played a huge role in the movie or get me feeling any certain way. It was more so the actual writing that got me to feel a certain way and the emotion showed on screen.
Yeah, I think the music was just kind of good accompaniment. It didn't overbear, um, but it highlighted scenes that it was in. But it definitely, I think it could have been better, but it wasn't bad. It left no impression, and sometimes it's good, you know. Because I don't have anything bad to say about it, but if you threw on the soundtrack for this movie, I would barely be able to tell you anything about what was going on in the movie at the time because the soundtrack just felt more like an accompaniment than its own thing to help bring the movie to a higher level. It was just there to be specifically like, oh, this scene should kind of sound like this.
The
Uh,
only real music was like when she sang.
Yeah.
yeah, the musical set pieces when she was singing definitely stood out compared to the actual background music
Score.
of the entire movie, which
Yeah.
I found once I found out who did the music, who composed it. I was actually kind of a little disappointed and let down by the music. It never stood out as a character to me. It was always a very good, like Lila said, an accompaniment to the story and what was happening. However, the music was composed by Ramin Djawadi, and he is known for doing movies and shows like Iron Man, Pacific Rim, Westworld, and Game of Thrones. And to see somebody who does soundtracks that are very memorable in all of those pieces of media, Reminiscence never really left me with, man, I loved that song or sequence, like how Hans Zimmer does in Christopher Nolan films. We'll take Interstellar for example. If I were to tell you to think of Interstellar and now think of the docking sequence where Matthew McConaughey has to connect the ship that was blown apart and spin it, and now think of the music that was playing, more often than not, you would probably be able to hear the tone in your head. Now, if I were to go, tell me the music that was playing in Reminiscence when Hugh Jackman was fighting the dirty cop and during the water sequence, I honestly couldn't tell you at all. I can't even do a hum that I think it would be like. And what really disappointed me was when the credits started rolling, they had a song they had played for Reminiscence, and I'm trying to find the name of the song right now.
I think really with this movie, they took the approach less is more with it, with the music aspect, and I think it paid off. I think it paid off for this movie. Now, like as you were saying, like with any of these other movies that we like, an example, Interstellar, there was a lot of scenes that was just quiet, like there was like nothing happening, so they add like the music added in kind of helped fill that void of no actual speech or anything. I think it was done well with this movie. How the aspect of it was a very low tones. You didn't want really a lot of music to overbear, depressing overtones of the movie.
Well, it disappointed me because, and I think the song is called Save My Love, is what they play during the credits. And that is the only piece of music that stuck out to me. However, like I had talked to Lily, as we were in the theater about to watch it, I said, I am so excited to hear what this music is going to be like. I specifically called that out. Only on the basis is when you watch the trailer, and we can get into a discussion in other videos about how trailers can deceive your expectations for movies, but the music in the trailer sounded so much better and so much more of a character than it actually was throughout the whole film. So I would say, for my personal take on the music when it came to Reminiscence and who composed it and knowing his track record, I'm disappointed. I'm pretty let down when it comes to the music.
I wish there would have been more music, but I think even with the less music in it, I think it played off very well.
Not so much of like less is more. Did I want less music? I wanted the music to be more of a reminder to me in my mind what each scene was, like how Nolan does. If you think of a specific, or if you the take Marvel like for example, like hum me the Marvel's theme song right now.
All right, we can't really compare that. That's been going on for 10 years.
But it's a character. Even in the first one, that dun 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 dun, and it becomes a character. And I don't feel the music was a character in this movie, and it disappointed me.
I mean, at the same time, I also don't think it needed to be. Like,
yeah, that's what I'm saying.
It would have been nice to have more memorable music, and I think that's just because I love this movie so much already. That it would have been nice to like have a memorable soundtrack so I could go back and listen to it. But at the same time, like I feel like the movie didn't need another character. This was very specifically about two people.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't about a cast of characters. It was about two people. And everybody else was just kind of along for the ride. And I think if the music was more powerful, it might have overshadowed that.
That's a fair argument. But I would have liked to have seen what the soundtrack would have been like if they had Hans Zimmer do it.
Fair.
So, after music, we have
reviews like Rotten Tomatoes, and go over the major critic reviews of the movie.
Okay. Logan, go ahead and start us on the reviews. Do you have the Rotten Tomato reviews up?
Yes, I have Rotten Tomatoes. So, an overall out of 119 reviews from Rotten Tomatoes, they gave it a 37%.
Is this
Very
critic
shocked by it.
reviews or actual Rotten Tomatoes?
It was the. It looks like puke. I don't know the difference.
That's the critic score.
Like, okay.
The critic score gave it a 37%. The audience score, it doesn't have one totaled up yet.
I think we need a couple more. Yeah, we need a couple more days before that is put out.
But the critics gave it an overall 37%, and
so it's considered rotten.
Yeah, I'll go over a couple of these. Amy Nixon from Film Week says it wants to be a Chinatown meets Blade Runner, but it has about the worst dialogue I've ever heard in a film forever.
Okay.
Another Elias Savada from Film International, a sad debut feature for Lisa Joy, the co-creator, often executive producer, and sometimes writer of HBO's highly regarded Westworld series. Her vision here totters between genres and usually just reminds you of better films. I'll pull up the full review. It was cut off. Reminds you of better films.
I disagree, but all right.
The Animus didn't remind me of a better film.
Here's some ones that are tomatoes. Once Reminiscence gets rolling, it's a slick and satisfying ride that barrels to an ending that's subtly beautiful and bleak. By Christy Pucco, Crooked Marquis.
I'd agree with that one.
That's well, I mean, that's the whole point of the film. It's brought up numerous times through the characters. Very specifically, a scene where May and Hugh Jackman are talking, and she says, "Tell me a story with a happy ending." And he says, or what is it? I'm trying to remember.
She says, "Tell me a story," and he says,
she said with a happy ending.
What kind of story? She says one with a happy ending.
Yeah.
He said there's happy stories don't have, or there is no such thing as happy ending. Even happy stories are sad because they end. And she says, well, then tell me a happy story and stop in the middle.
And that is brought up throughout the entire film. And the film itself follows through with that plot thread. It ends in the middle of the story.
And it's not happy.
Nick's character ends in the middle of the story,
right?
And
yeah,
that's
and
a beautiful way
the
to
ending of this movie itself is super bittersweet.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So overall, IMDb gave it a 6 out of 10, and from Google itself, 73% of Google users like this movie. So I think the critics went really heavy with it because in this, I just think they went crazy with it.
Let's just put it out here right now. The critics in Rotten Tomato clearly do not understand filmmaking anymore.
No, obviously.
I mean, the critics on Rotten Tomato tend to be hit or miss. Like they're either right or they're very wrong. And
There's
I'm
no
excited
in between.
to see. Yeah, I'm excited to see the user reviews come in because I think they're extremely wrong. This film is beautiful. I love it. I would watch this again in a heartbeat.
I didn't think I was sitting there for 2.5 hours. I didn't think I was sitting there for 2.5 hours watching a movie. Like it was over. I was like, it's over?
It's not 2.5 hours. It is not even 2 hours.
It's 2 hours and 28 minutes.
On IMDb, it says 1 hour and 56.
It says right here, Reminiscence, sci-fi thriller, 2 hours and 28 minutes.
Well, the jury's still out on how long the movie is.
Somebody's wrong here.
Someone's wrong.
I haven't calculated it yet.
No one really knows how long anything is.
We're actually in that theater for days. We just didn't realize it.
It's not even August anymore.
Right.
But what's crazy is, so they had a $68 million budget for this movie, and an opening weekend so far, as of it opened Friday, it's, fourth right now, it's Sunday at 1:38 p.m. for me, and they've scraped together $2 million.
Out of what?
Out of $68 million from box office.
They've got. Well, what did I tell you, Lily, in the podcast? What was going to happen to this film? Nobody was going to go see it because it is not Marvel and it is not DC, and people are not interested in original storytelling IPs anymore, and they do not want to have to think. They want to sit there, they want to shove popcorn in their face, and they want to
the whole time.
turn their brains off and be walked like a child through 3 acts and not have to really put any type of thought into it. Modern movie viewers are destroying the film industry.
You also got to imagine with HBO as well, which as we had this discussion yesterday, I know HBO is not going to get back $66 million in the deficit that showed so far. They're not going to get that, but they probably had a better turnout with HBO because people were like, well, instead of, I'll pay $7.99 to watch the movie and have this for a month to watch any movie I want, instead of going to the theaters and spending $30 for a family of two or three
Right.
two to
Yeah.
go.
Plus, nobody wants to go out during demonetization.
Let's give it another week. Next time we film, let's come back and add this in as a side note, just to see where it's sitting with box office revenue. Because I mean, our theater was dead. There was
it was super dead.
There was like 6 of us and like 3 couples.
That's it.
There's even a note on here of how Paw Patrol, the movie, has demolished this movie.
Yes, I do remember that when at our theater, it started out dead, but then it slowly got packed. But with families and their children and young ones, and I kept thinking to myself, well, what in the world is out that all these families are coming to with small children? It's clearly can't be Reminiscence. And we found out that Paw Patrol was showing in theaters. So
that's why I'm saying give it a week. Let's see what those parents do. Once those kids are at their grandparents or at the babysitter and they get a night out to go watch a movie, they might come in and watch Reminiscence and have a good time.
Well, I am interested to see how many people actually watched it at home versus going out. But I don't know if HBO releases those numbers ever.
No, I don't think they do. I mean, I watch it on HBO, and
it's disappointing. This is what's going to happen to these type of. They're going to go. They're going to. Big companies are going to stop putting money towards them. All these great directors are going to stop even trying, and they're going to find somewhere else to put their movies because nobody's going to see them.
What studio was this? Was this Warner Brothers or was it like Lionsgate?
Warner Brothers.
Was it Warner Brothers?
Yep.
Reminiscence was
Warner Media Group.
So was it not like a big?
Yeah, it was Warner Brothers. It was distributed by Warner Brothers. So the same studio that distributed the Suicide Squad.
And that just makes this the best DC movie that we've ever seen.
The best DC movie that nobody's going to see.
I thoroughly hope people go out and watch it. If you're watching this and you haven't gone out and seen Reminiscence, do yourself a favor. Just if you have HBO Max, just go ahead and watch it. It's great. I loved it.
I also did too.
If you don't have HBO Max, I'd go as far as to say it's worth going to the theater for.
Absolutely. Be as safe 100%. As possible, and we're not telling anybody to do anything that makes them uncomfortable, but if you are capable, definitely go out and put your money towards these type of movies so they can start making money back and continue to be made. But these projected numbers so far are troublesome to me because there's so many non-superhero movies coming up that are riding on the line whether or not people will go see them. Especially, for example, Denis Villeneuve's Dune, which is supposed to be a 2-part film. However, if the first one does not do good, they're not making the second part.
Heck no.
So That
here's an
all
update.
right out the bat, that's telling audience members that the ones who are interested in this, that go out to go see this and will want a conclusion to a 2.5 hour movie. If nobody
Gotta
else
get your
goes
friends to
sees,
go watch it.
right? If nobody goes sees it, you're not going to get an ending to this. So what a waste.
As of 56 minutes ago, they did report that they have made $5 million total box office from Reminiscence. I mean, it's still embarrassing because I mean the movie is outstanding and people just not seeing it is
It's
That's
only
nice.
been out for 2 days, so
well, yeah, but I
I mean,
mean,
it's still opening weekend, and that's
it-
usually when most of the money comes in.
Yeah,
Yeah.
opening weekend is the biggest time for movies to get their
but
money.
I feel like this wasn't advertised a whole. I mean, I don't watch normal television or anything, but I mean, even
Compared to Marvel movies and DC movies,
no,
they're drowned in advertisements compared to what those companies are able to spend on advertising and
100%.
drown everything else out.
so many millions of dollars.
We actually had a game in
billions.
the podcast with me and Lily tell me in the last 3 years a movie that was not part of a franchise and not a superhero movie, a Marvel or DC film that came out in the last 3 years. And
It was rough.
it was rough. It was super rough. However, if I asked what was the last couple Marvel movies that just came out, right off
Be
the
able to spout
bat.
'em off.
Yeah.
I mean, don't get us wrong. We're definitely Marvel fans, 100%. But
I'm a
you
fan
know,
of
see-
Marvel in as long as they don't destroy everything else. I don't want
exactly.
just Marvel.
No,
But
no,
I
I
think-
get that. You want
I
something
think we're
different.
actually getting close to where, like, I think we should give out our final, like, overall review.
Mhm.
Jake, what did you think?
My
What's your rating?
final overall review of Lisa Joys' directorial debut, Reminiscence, starring Hugh Jackman and Rebecca Ferguson. The plot, like I said, not original, but I did like her creative spin on it. I did like the setting. I liked the dystopian future mixed in with the neo-noir 1930s, 1920s mystery thriller, true crime setting that they pulled off. The cinematography was very serviceable, not the best I've ever seen, and the score was a disappointment to me. So my final rating on this, and to highlight the performances were fantastic. You know, even somebody, I know that we all dogged on Daniel Wu's character, but I don't think that had anything to do with his performance. It was more of that character. I thought they were great. So I would give this movie an 8 out of 10. The only detriments that is keeping it that low for me would be the score, the soundtrack, and I feel like this movie could have did a little bit better if it was at least maybe 2.5 hours. I feel like she could have developed the world a little bit more. We could have seen scenes that we would have liked to, and it would have held us in more suspense. So the length and the soundtrack are the low points. Everything else, fantastic. So 8 out of 10 for me. Logan, what about you?
Right off the top, so there's definitely like I really don't have a negative thing to say. I absolutely loved the movie. I loved every bit of it. I didn't think I would. I absolutely did. I thought it was great. Okay, so the one thing I do have to hit on with that is, as we said, May, uh, the character that Rebecca Ferguson played, she's the same character every movie she does. Just about the same character, same archetype, you know, same kind of like demeanor. But overall, I'd have to say I'd give this movie a 9 out of 10 in my book. I really liked it. I really like hope that there's some sort of way to show what led up to the war and maybe something like that. You know, some prequel thing where it shows, you know, when everything went down, like when they because they talked about the levees breaking in New Orleans and they had to create levees there in Miami. So I'd like to see, you know, what led up to that in the sense of like when it happened and then what started the war essentially.
Like you're saying, you want to see another film about that exclusively?
I wouldn't be opposed to it. I'd like to see it.
I disagree. I think stop with the franchises, make standalone movies, but that's just my opinion. But
Well,
I understand where
yeah.
you're coming from.
I'd like to see what led up to the dystopian. You know what they actually like because they kept referencing the war. Well, I want to know what happened exactly in that war.
Right.
You know,
I understand.
I love war movies. So, but yeah, overall 9 out of 10.
Okay. Lilith?
My overall rating. So when it comes to the actual cinematography, I only had the one nitpick, and that was with the intro to Nick. But other than that, I love the way it was shot. I love the use of close-ups. I love the plot. Uh, Ferguson and her character May were so good at having me on the back and forth on whether or not I could give a single crap about her. And it was back and forth between I don't like her, I don't want anything to do with her, Nick, you deserve better, to oh hey, I love you, please never get out of frame. And the blend between this dystopian future and the noir settings of the past with the bar midnight shows with the singers, it was, I think it was a great blend. And especially when you bring in like the added narrative of the Baroness and everything that's going on in the inlands, it leaves so much up to the imagination to fill in the rest of the world building that while I agree I would not want a sequel or a prequel, I think this is a perfect standalone film. The amount of world building that I can continue doing in my head for this universe is fantastic, and it's a delight to be able to think about it. And as far as everything else goes, I love it. I think this is a great film. It is easily a contender so far to me for movie of the year. So I'm going to go ahead and give it a 9.8 out of 10.
Okay. That brings us to Nathan.
A lot of what Lily said, but there were a couple more inconsistencies we didn't talk about, such as when they're underwater, realistically, how did they hold their breath that long? I did that in a theater and almost pissed myself and then died.
Yep. I agree.
And the fact that he comes out of the water to stab him in the neck with a needle, Hugh Jackman made zero noise coming out of water. Hugh Jackman made zero noise walking up to him in water, soaking wet. Uh, then there was also a problem of when he's looking for him with all the clothes hanging. I'm not gonna lie, the trailer deceives you. It's not as many clothes as you think it is. It is like a couple,
I
and
mean,
they make it seem like he is they're everywhere.
I know what you're talking about. You could actually see him through one of them when he's coming through and he comes and slaps him, like hits him with a pipe. I saw him before he
Yeah.
went through the cloth. I was like, but you know,
Yeah. Realism for it,
The more,
I mean,
more style over plot writing.
Hollywood physics.
I'll give it a 7 out of 10, and that's gonna be my final rating.
Okay. Okay. Well, yeah, generally, the rating we've all given it, I would have to agree with Lily. This is the best movie I have seen this year so far. I know we have a couple more months left, but definitely the best movie so far. And this
Definitely
Nolan
running.
family, please continue to make movies because they are just absolutely phenomenal, and I think some of the best pieces of media coming out of Hollywood today. However, with all that said, I hope everybody enjoyed this review. This is a different format we are trying, so please leave comments whether or not you like this compared to other formats we will be working with, and just let us know. And don't forget, leave a like, click that subscribe button, and we'll do a final sign off. So, an outro. Nathan?
Hi, I'm Nathan. Thanks for walking through this journey with us. And I'm signing off. Here's Lily.
Bye.
Logan?
Bye.
As always, it's a great time to come out and hang out with everybody. I had fun. Hope y'all had fun too. Make sure you drop comments, about this. Maybe some videos that you might like to see. I know it's a little bit early for that, but it's always good to see other people's aspects, or if you even agreed with us. Definitely let us know that. And you guys have a good one.
Absolutely. Thank you for watching, and continue to leave comments, like and subscribe. And I've been your host, Jacob, and thank you for reminiscing the movie Reminiscence with us. Have a wonderful day, and we will see you next time. Goodbye.